Welcome to the Sustainable Clinical Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Sarah Smith. I am a practicing rural family physician and the charting coach. This is the podcast for physicians and advanced practice providers who are ready to step back from the busyness of their clinical day to share ideas, question everything, and redesign their clinical day. We are redesigning clinical medicine to create sustainable clinical days and create time for our lives outside of medicine. Join us for discussions with world experts who are helping design sustainable models of clinical medicine and the physicians or clinicians who have discovered or designed sustainable models of clinical medicine for themselves. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. Today we have Dr. Nicole Perrotte with us, and she's going to walk us through her journey in medicine. So welcome. I will let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I am a board certified physician in internal medicine. I've been practicing for almost 20 years. I spend the bulk of my clinical practice as an adult hospitalist in internal medicine.
Yeah.
So I've been running in the hospital, running behind patients who have been admitted for various illnesses. And just before COVID, that's when I started to feel the chronic buildup of stress and burnt out. Added to that, I also had my twins just before that as well. And so I found myself with a busy, hectic, rigid hospitalist schedule. We worked 12-hour shifts, 7 days on, 7 days off, and twins. It was a lot. I burnt out. And that burnout was exacerbated because one of my kids, my son, turned out to have special needs. So trying to balance all of that became quite the load that unfortunately was not sustainable. Thankfully, I found coaching and I was able to make some adjustments, find ways to bring joy back to my life, but also find ways to take care of myself so I could actually take care of others. Then COVID happened and burnt out again. And so had to relearn a few things. Thankfully, I was able to make a few more changes, align with what was truly important to myself. And here I am today. I no longer am in the hospital, but I'm able to work remotely, see patients remotely, as well as support physicians who have gone through the same experience as a coach.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot. Wow,
Yes.
that is significant. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So
Mhm.
you said you've been in practice for 20 years. So before the twins came along, tell us about how things had been going within this hospitalist work and how you were able to do this 12 hours, 7 day on, 7 days off, and kind of make that manageable for you. So what did that look like? How was your journey then, do you think?
You know what? It was very simple because
Mhm.
when you're single with no other responsibility other than to take care of yourself, you work your shifts, and when your shifts are over, you take that 7 days to sleep,
Yeah.
rest, do things that you enjoy with your friends. You would plan because you had 7 days off to do whatever you wanted. That
Okay.
meant the first couple of days were actually spent resting, not
Ah,
necessarily catching up on things that you had to push off because you were not able to do it when you were working. And so it was quite sustainable when I didn't have the additional responsibility because on the off days, I then spend that time resting and taking care of myself and doing the things that I wanted to do.
got it. What about the working days? So 12-hour shifts are long anyway.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, What did you do to pace yourself through the days? And did the work actually finish at the end of the shift, or did you have some spillover? Like, what did a day in the life of Dr. Nicole look like on your days that you're working?
There were actually no spillovers. I
Hmm.
was very regimented in how I approached my day.
Hmm.
Essentially, started off the morning quick rounding, whether it was rounding on the computer, followed by seeing my patients, discharges, because usually those are planned the day before, getting those out, at least getting the paperwork done, not necessarily getting them out, getting them seen and paperwork done. And then working with the newer patients who came in overnight and working my way through the list.
Okay.
After that, take a break, often spending time getting lunch, connecting with colleagues. Fortunately, I was able to have a leisurely lunch and spend time connecting with my colleagues in the doctor's lounge. I know as the time has been going, more and more doctor's lounges are going away and people are not sitting and
Mm.
actually chit-chatting with each other like before. So that was something that was probably the highlight of my day, sitting at lunch for easily an hour, barring some page or call to run back, to actually sit and connect and just chit-chat with others. Then the second half of the day would then be wrapped up with going to see any new patients who needed to be seen again and getting my notes done. Easily the last 2, 3 hours was just focused on getting those notes done and making sure that things were set up for the next day, including the ones who had to be discharged. So
Okay.
there was a routine that made it flow easily, and when the time came to walk out the door, usually that was accomplished without too much difficulty.
Was there a handover process in person with the person coming on, or is that done differently in your hospital?
I worked in several different hospitals because I actually did locums
Mhm.
quite extensively as well for about 5 years. So I've had both experiences where you could see them requesting mandatory handoff to the night person, giving them a spiel as to what's happening with every patient.
Mhm.
Then there were the places where it was not required. Essentially, it was the honor system. If you had
Yep.
a patient who was not doing well, you would let them know. But for the most part, you turned off your pager, you walked out the door. It was a done deal until the next morning.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
How did you feel in terms of energy at the end of that 12-hour shift for you?
I would say I was tired
Tired? Yeah.
because you're walking easily. You've walked over 10,000 steps
Mm.
and you have been interacting, being outgoing,
Mhm.
empathetic. You're using a lot of emotional power as well. So between the physical and the mental aspect, you actually use quite a lot of energy. So at the
Mhm.
end of the day, I did feel tired and drained, but not necessarily exhausted to the point where I needed to lay down at the front step of the hospital to catch my breath.
Got it. Got it. What about, did you feel supported in that workplace? And what about things like interruptions? Like if you're doing that charting at the end of the day or doing your round in the morning when you're feeling regimented, tell me about the interruptions and the feeling supported.
I felt supported for the most part because I had wonderful colleagues. I had most of whom were still my friends, and we speak on a regular basis. I had wonderful nurses to work with as well. But yes, with the role as a hospitalist, there are a lot of interruptions. There are constant calls because of labs or someone may not be doing well, so there might be a code or someone just needing to be seen urgently because they've taken a turn for the worse. There were lots of interruptions. I think that is part of the joy if you look at it from that point of view of being a hospitalist, you never know what you're going to get. And
Mhm.
of course, there is some degree of acuity that comes with it,
Mhm.
but there were a lot of interruptions. And I think knowing that you expect it, and it's a matter of knowing, okay, when is it going to happen? What is it going to be? Worst case scenario, is it going to be a code? After that, it's okay, not so bad. It's going to take 10 minutes, maybe an hour.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, like I said, a code. And then you've used up quite a chunk of your day. But for the most part, expect it and know that it will be there and you just have to then work around it.
Okay. What
Mhm.
about your space to do your notes? Where were you doing that? Was it a common area, or did you have an office to go to? What and kind of patient load average? I know you can't specify number of patients usually, but what sort of load were you talking about for these?
It varied.
Mm-hmm.
Easily during the summer, it could be as low as 10 patients on the service. But then in winter, when things were busy with flus and MIs, we could see 20, 22
Mm-hmm.
patients. It
Mm-hmm.
really varied. Then, of course, it depended on having adequate staffing.
Mm-hmm.
If we were short staffed, then we could easily see those numbers hovering in the high teens and low 20s instead of on the lower end of 10 to 15. So that was something that varied depending on the season.
Mm-hmm.
The setup for the workspace also varied. I've had my own office and I've had places where we're all sitting in an open area, one big room with a line of computers and everyone is typing away and dictating at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Very noisy environment, but still, that was essentially the space that we had to get stuff done.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Take us now to your pregnancy and twins and how things were different.
So that was different because it required doing two jobs. You're doing two
Mm,
jobs, right? You're working as a doctor and then you're also working and your second or third shift, depending on how you look at it, as a mother, trying to make sure you're keeping these little human beings healthy, making sure that they're fed, making sure that they're sleeping, making sure that you're taking them to all the necessary appointments, they're getting caught up on whether it's little activities to help stimulate them. There are all these little things. And when you're a new mother, there are things that you're learning for the first time. So it's quite a steep learning curve that you're experiencing. And
yeah.
that was the case for me. It was a very steep learning curve because when you're brand new, you just don't know. So there are lots of things that are new to you.
Yeah. And you have two little people. And you said one had special needs. And did you have outside help? Were you doing this by yourself? Like, tell us all the things that helped you survive this
Right.
change.
It was quite a change. And thankfully, my husband was very supportive. And thankfully, we also had a wonderful person, a very encouraging nanny who we call her the kids' adopted grandmother because
Hmm. Hmm.
she even to this day she remains very involved in their lives and make sure that they're doing well, encouraging them, provide support that you would expect. And in terms of navigating that, it was difficult because the it didn't present initially as having my son did not present initially as having special needs. It just became apparent as time moved on that he was not progressing like his sister.
Hmm.
And as we did the workup following the different doctor's appointments, that is when things started to get a little bit tight because we were starting to have all of these doctor's appointments. And I had this very rigid schedule.
Hmm.
As a hospitalist, essentially, when you're in the hospital, you're in the hospital. There's no running out to get stuff done and come back. You're on
Hmm.
call at the hospital. And so it became very difficult to navigate those appointments because, of course, they're never convenient to what your schedule looked like. And so it meant having to ask other colleagues, hey, can you cover for me for 2 hours while I go to an appointment? Hey, I need to run out for 3 hours. Or stepping away to take a phone call because that is the
Hmm.
only way you can navigate having some presence at an appointment that my husband might be taking my son to and finding an empty room to
Hmm.
have a conversation because that is the only way you can navigate it, considering you literally just had another appointment the week before and ask a couple colleagues, can you cover for me? And
Hmm.
so it's this also this expectation in medicine as well that you just have to be there. You can't step away to do things that are outside of medicine. You have to be available at all times. So you ask, but then you don't want to ask. And even when you ask, you know that people are wondering, why can't you find other ways to get this done? Why can't you do this on your
Your
off
days
days?
off. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So then
And
there's a sense of, I don't want to ask, but I have to ask.
because you're also the physician covering that you can't just literally line up with your schedule, some of these things, and some things are urgent and emergent. They're not even
Right.
schedulable.
Right. Right.
Okay, so having little people is exhausting anyway.
Hmm.
And then you're doing hospitalist work, the same 12-hour
Hmm.
shift, 7 days on, 7 days off. And you said you mentioned burnout. What did burnout look like, feel like? What were you noticing?
I was constantly tired. I felt like I didn't have any joy in coming to work. Everything was irritable, didn't feel that excitement to meet other people. There was this depersonalization that occurred because I felt so overwhelmed. I felt everything was a mountain to climb. It felt very tiring, felt overwhelming. And so that was what it looked like for me. Thought that everything was just too much. Why is everything so hard? And it's only in retrospect I realized what had happened, that it really was a lot. And some of it needed to be delegated and some changes needed to happen.
Mhm.
But thankfully, at the time, there was a wellness program that our division invested in. We had someone come in to do some yoga sessions, yoga/meditation sessions. And I actually found that very helpful. It was
Mm.
able to take that edge off and help me find that balance that I needed. It was a great tool that I was able to use for at least a year or so. And that was actually something that made a difference.
So when did they schedule those? So when was the yoga and meditation running? And was it just on your days that you were working, or was it on, you would come in on days off? Like, tell us about how did that program run?
So it actually ran on the days we were off. Interestingly, over two-thirds of our department signed up for it. And
Mm,
so those were scheduled on our days off. It allowed people to go get the sessions done and then come back to work the next day feeling better about themselves. It ran over the course of a month.
mhm.
Interestingly, I think a couple of us had a couple of shifts that were what we call admitter shifts. So we found ourselves having to do the sessions in the morning and then go to work. But it's still, the benefits were there. At the end of it, we all noted improvement in stress levels, how we handle stress, how we felt in general, our outlook, our approach. It all improved having done that session.
Okay, so it sounds like the whole of you, the team of you, were all feeling different.
Hmm.
To have two-thirds of you sign up for
Hmm.
something that on your days off,
Yes, yes,
to come in to do, that's going to take at least an
right.
hour, and you have twins at home, like,
Right.
and appointments and doctor's appointments, and you're
Yes.
just feeling exhausted. Like, I'm astounded that there was like, yes, I want that. I'm like, they must have had some decent advertising for that program.
And you know what? The advertising was decent, was one of our colleagues. She was a strong believer. She had
Okay,
worked
so
with
the
the,
warm handoff. It's like, I did this and it's good for me, so it's good for you too,
yes,
so you're coming. Okay, got it.
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Best
yes.
type of
And she was like,
marketing. You got to
exactly. She was
do
like, I
this.
did
I
this.
found it helpful.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
okay. Coming from a peer, they must know what they're talking about. Okay, got it. So
Yes.
you said yes because your friend said this helped me. So that's interesting. So you're having conversations with others then in order to be able to facilitate this wellness project happening.
Hmm.
Somebody had to say, I'm not doing well. I need help. So your
Hmm.
colleague said that. I don't know. Did she say that to you before she went and got help, or she just kind of toddled off and got help? Like, what happened there?
She actually just went and got help.
Okay.
But we had conversations and we had all shared amongst ourselves individually that there were too many things that were happening that was not giving us the balance that we were looking for between difficult patient encounters, the workload, the difficulty in getting stuff done because our schedule was so rigid,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of adequate staffing,
Mm-hmm.
chronic problem because still needed to pick up extra shifts, things like that to cover for colleagues who may have left and have not been replaced, things like that. And so
Oh,
we were all having these individual conversations amongst ourselves. And it had been broached with leadership. And the usual answer, which is what you'd hear, was, we're working on it. We're trying to hire people.
yeah, yeah.
And in the meantime, please keep working. We appreciate you.
Okay, what was the ask? So you've got 7 days on, 12-hour shifts.
Mhm.
Would they ask you to fill the next 7 or like 3 of the next 7? Like what was the ask?
Whatever you could do. If you could give us
Please
one, yeah, what if you
work
could do one day?
24/7, 7 days.
Yes, yes. Nobody did that. No.
No, okay, fair enough. Okay, so was it a continual everyday request? Can you do more? Can you do more? Can you do more?
There was that constant request. We have X amount of shifts open because we still don't have extra hands. Can you
Yeah.
pick up one? Usually you start with one. Okay, can you get a second shift under their belt? And so there was that constant, can you add one more and one more? It all depended on you saying, no, I need to set boundaries and this is not sustainable. I need to find time to take care of me. But
Was this
there was that
happening
constant
before?
ask.
Was this happening before like in the years prior to having the children as well?
Mhm.
Okay, so it had been there a little bit, but hadn't felt quite so like, or were the team stressed already about that?
The team was already stressed
Okay.
and it was easier to pick it up before with less responsibilities.
Okay.
But I think at that time as well, there were a bunch of new babies as well. So
Okay.
the ability and the bandwidth
Yeah.
as a team
Yeah.
had also dropped.
Okay, so we're
So
we're running short, but there's a bit of capacity. Okay, now we're not having that capacity because now I'm a parent too, and now there's more and more parents coming along, and
exactly.
so the holes weren't being filled as easily.
Correct. Correct.
Got it.
Yes. Yes.
Because
Yes.
it's 7 days on, 7 days off, as a no other responsibility sounds delightful, and then they're like, and can you take one of those away, and can you take another shift, and can the constant ask. So it's interesting because you when you had set it up, it sounded delightful, but actually there was still that perpetual drip of,
Yes.
can you do more,
Yes.
can you do more, can you
Yes.
do more? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's funny how we kind of forget those little asks. They just kind of
Yes. It
happen. You
was
just do
there.
it because you're looking after your colleagues if you do that shift. Yeah. Okay, got
Yes.
it. Okay. So you're feeling burnt out. Your friend says this helped me. You did that, it felt better,
Hmm.
but you kept going? Or you took time
Yes.
out? Like how did that work? Did you take time out after the babies? I forgot to ask.
Yes, I did. I did.
Okay.
I
Okay.
did. And so our system is here in the US is a little different from other
Yep.
places like Canada
Yep.
and Australia, etc., where you get your 6 weeks to 3 months maternity
No.
leave, and
You can
that's
have
it.
maternity leave, but it's not necessarily paid.
It's unpaid here as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
can you
it's
can take
unpaid.
it at your expense.
Right. Yeah, it's the same here. It's unpaid as well. So I
So how
took
long was that for you?
I took 3 months.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
12
Yeah.
weeks is not a lot of time after a
It's
baby.
not. It's not. And there's so much learning and so much recovery that is happening, but 3 months may sound a lot on paper, but it's nowhere close to enough. Yes.
It sounds like lovely if you're having a holiday. Doesn't
Yes.
sound lovely if you've got two little people, changes in your body, you're already
No,
exhausted,
no.
24/7. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So 3 months, you're back at work. You're now
Mhm.
saying, this is hard. This is even harder than before. I was already
Mhm.
hard. You do this wellness. How long after the babies were born was this wellness thing that you did? Do you think? Can you remember?
I would say about a year after.
Okay. Okay.
About a
Yeah.
year.
So you've done, so the babies are about a year. You're doing this wellness
Mhm.
meditation, thinking this feels a bit better.
Mhm.
Interesting. How did it better? What's the magic here? What did it do that felt like it gave you that? It sounds like you were describing relief, a little bit of relief, but
Yes,
um,
it was. It
So tell
was.
me, how did it do that? What were you experiencing? How did you make it happen in your day-to-day that would give you that relief?
Essentially, it was taking 10 minutes, 3, 4 times a day to just sit, be quiet,
Mm-hmm.
let your body be calm, calm your thoughts, and just letting your body and your mind rest.
Okay.
Deep breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And that was 4 times a day. I want to say 9, 12, 6, and right before bed.
Okay.
And that allowed my mind to be quiet, rest, calm that stressor, that go, 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 fight or flight
Mm-hmm.
response that we're usually
Mm-hmm.
operating under. So that calmed down when I did that. It allowed me to take that moment, let the parasympathetic kick in, slow
Mm-hmm.
everything down,
Mm-hmm.
regroup, and then start again. Yeah.
Cool. What about
Yeah.
things like nutrition? Because you said before you got an hour lunch break. What was lunch break looking like?
That was actually decent. We had decent lunch.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
actually had we actually had good healthy choices.
Good,
Yes,
good, good. And you
yes,
still got
yes,
the break? You still got your hour?
yes. And so it's not an hour that is dedicated on the
Mm-hmm,
calendar.
mm-hmm,
It's
mm-hmm,
you saying, I need to take that hour to go sit down and eat because I have to eat. And
mm-hmm,
to knowing that there are colleagues there that I can sit and talk with and chit chat about stuff outside of
mm-hmm,
medicine was also encouraging. That whole idea of community and
mm-hmm,
connection was
mm-hmm,
there. So twofold, just stopping, working for a minute, well, not stopping, you still had calls to respond to, but
mm-hmm.
nutrition as well as that connection with other human beings.
Did you stay in the job up until COVID, or did with that what you were describing as burnout, did you need time off in addition to the maternity leave?
No, I stayed. I stayed until after
Okay.
COVID. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
Mhm.
tell us, and you said you went through burnout and then you did this wellness. It started to be helpful doing these timed check
Mhm.
in for your body moments through the day. I like that. That actually sounds doable, right? You
It
gave it
is.
like little segments by the
Yes.
clock. It was super. I love that. And then you
Yes.
said COVID burnt you too. So tell us about what was happening then. What was this second burnout hill that you came across? Tell us more.
Right. Well, as great as the benefits were from the regimen of meditation, over time I fell off doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then COVID happened. Life got busy because taking care of the twins, they're getting older. And COVID happened with all of the distractions, all of the anxiety, all of the worry and fear that came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that persistent stress, that chronic fear, that chronic anxiety that was there, that was on a different level because we all thought we were going to die.
Mm-hmm.
It was scary.
Mm-hmm.
And we were living in this unprecedented era where nobody had done this before. What was the outcome going to be? So there was a heightened stress level that was there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter what anyone said, you just knew you had to keep going. But then there was that fear as well that made everything so disturbing because you're thinking there has to be a way to feel better. But then with everything going on, you're not even sure where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, doing everything, the running, the fear, the anxiety, the stress of the job, trying to navigate this new illness and virus and the consequences of it, we all became extremely stressed. And I think just traumatized at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
because it was essentially a catastrophic event that
Mm-hmm.
affected us. I think we all had some degree of burnout, stress, overwhelm just from that chronic state we
Mm-hmm.
were in for that extended period of time.
Mm-hmm. Did you have access to things like PPE and were you still able to meet together in a capacity like that connection that you were having in the lunch hour before, which was very important to you? What happened to like that during this period?
So we had PPE. Of course, there were restrictions. We had to hold on to them for extended period of time. There
Mhm.
wasn't that rapid turnover like we had had prior to COVID, where you use it once and move on to the
Right,
next.
yeah, yeah.
Right. But the things like connection, that stopped because now everybody wanted to try and maintain that little bubble that they were part of.
Mhm.
So there wasn't that community, that connection to have lunch and chit chat about where you're going. Everybody was focused on how do I stay alive, essentially.
Mm, mm,
And thankfully, around maybe 6 months into it, 6, 9 months into it, I discovered that my chapter, my Georgia chapter for the American College of Physicians, actually had regular virtual meeting sessions where they would say, hey, let's just connect and let's just talk what's going on. And that actually became a lifeline
mhm,
because people would show up and they were vulnerable. They would say, this is what's going on with me, this is how I'm feeling.
mhm,
There were others who said, hey, I'm a coach. I'm willing to spend time talking to you, coaching you, letting you know that what you're going through is okay. Don't be surprised at how you're feeling. This is expected.
mm,
And so
mhm,
that was also another avenue that opened up as the time went on as well. And so those were two things that opened up towards 1 year in that were
mhm,
very, very helpful.
mm.
Yeah.
What was your workload like as you went through COVID? Was it similar, more? How were your numbers through the day?
They were still up there. Yes, they were still up there. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
And so,
kind of the higher end of normal all the time and sick people.
in this instance, just very sick people, yes.
Mhm.
There were no, oh, some were very easy, moderate illnesses that were easily taken care of. Everyone was just sick in
Everyone
the
was,
true sense of the word.
yeah. Did you need time out after? So how did the transition from hospitalist now to virtual, tell us about what needed to change? What did you notice?
And that actually was a welcome relief when that happened. It was needed. It was definitely needed. I would say the big change that I had to make was not being able to spend that time in person that I was used to because that human connection is no longer there when you're doing virtual. But it meant that I had to be more intentional about it. So I realized I need to be more intentional to actually foster this. So I found myself scheduling things or reaching out or joining groups to make sure that I'm actually fostering those connections and building on that.
And what made you decide to leave the hospitalist work to pursue something different?
It was a combination of all of the things we talked about, the drip, the constant requirements of can you do more? Can you do more? Whether it's another committee, whether it's another project, whether it's another shift, whether it's another load of patients, you name it, it's the constant drip combined with trying to take care of little ones. And it just became that balance that didn't work for me. And
Mhm,
some may find that it's completely doable, but for me, it was just not an option because having that support system was not something that we have because we live in a city where we actually really don't have any family. And
mm,
so that was not something that was an option for us. That meant navigating everything on our own. My husband is very helpful, but at the same time, we both need to be able to show up for these children, including
mm,
our son who has special needs, even more just to make sure that things are done the way we want them to be done. So that meant figuring out what was important. Where do I need to draw boundaries?
mm.
Because it meant what was important to me had to be priority. I didn't want to say, oh, I'm trying to do this and then get upset because it's not happening when I myself didn't make the space for it to happen. So that facilitated the transfer to do virtual.
Mm. Yeah, got it. Okay. So virtual is available, or it's one of the options you came across when you were looking for different options. Did you also try changing the system, like say, hey, these 12 hours aren't working for me. Can we look at an alternative option? Did you ask those questions? What happened?
Oh yes, oh
What
yes.
did you kind of pursue?
Oh
And
yes,
what
oh
was the
yes.
answer?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh my gosh, yes. Can we do 8 or 10 hour shifts?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that was something that came up.
yeah,
And it boiled down to having that 24 hours, 7 days, 365 coverage. And
yes,
when you don't have enough bodies to
yeah.
do that, the math does not add up at the end of the day.
Okay.
That was the problem. And so I did ask, but it
Yeah.
was not enough. Yes, it
It was
just
a, it
couldn't.
was a no. Okay, got it. Because
Yes.
I'm always curious. There's usually some attempt to stay where you are, but make it more sustainable for you. And I'm just curious whether it was colleagues saying no, it was the system saying no, it was just literally not enough people around. And it sounds like it was a bit of all of the above.
Yes, all of the above. Yes,
Okay.
I stayed would have been wonderful, but that inability to make the schedule flexible. In
Hmm.
fact, that is something I talked about in my TED Talk, where I said having work flexibility is actually key
Mm.
to retaining workers because
Hmm.
at some point in time, we all need that flexibility to navigate life outside of work. We
Hmm.
can't be expected to be there round the clock, rigid, 7 on,
Yeah.
7 off, because,
Yes.
like I said, things don't always fall into that bucket outside of work when we wanted to.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
your
that is a struggle.
priority and is your children, and they're at a stage where they need more of you. And so you can't have more of me at work. I need more of me at home. And so you're like butting up against the system saying, this is not working for me anymore. What do I need? I need more flexibility. I need more time away from here. I need not 7 on.
Right,
I
right.
need I need it different because of my new stage.
Yes,
Or
yes.
even, it may not even be that you added children. You could just simply say, this isn't, I
Working for
cannot
you.
contain myself within these limitations anymore. It's not good for me.
Exactly, exactly. It doesn't have to be this is children. It could just be different stage in your life, older parents, you name it, but
Yeah,
something different. And
something
the
different.
option should be there. It shouldn't have to be something you're fighting about and having to have deep conversations about. It should be there to
Yeah.
accommodate.
Yeah. So one of them was the constant desire to find more doctors. You were hoping that they were doing, as they said they were doing, and actually looking and recruiting doctors for the positions. Um,
Mhm.
you, I don't know. Did you have the feeling that they were truly looking for replacements, or they were like, well, the holes are filled?
There are times you get the sense that they were looking because you'd have candidates come
Mhm.
through and you'd have lunch and discussion, but then there are times you felt, oh, that is nowhere on their radar. It is
None of their
nowhere.
priorities.
This is just a response to a question, and they were
Yeah,
not looking. Yeah,
got
it
it.
varied.
Got it. All right. So now, what are you? So you added coaching to your portfolio in addition
Mhm.
to your virtual work with patients. What do you do? Who do you help within your coaching practice? What sort of coaching do you do?
Right. And after I had the coaching sessions around the COVID period, they were so helpful. That was what really got me going.
Mm. Yeah.
And I was so inspired, I decided to go ahead and get coaching certification myself. And essentially, working to support women physicians or just physicians in general who are overwhelmed, who are burnt out, who are just taking care of everyone else but themselves, help them pivot to find what they themselves want to do, to find joy, to enjoy their life, to become self-confident again, to actually enjoy doing things that they want to do again so they could like the work, like the career, and live a full life.
Nice. How do people
Yeah.
find you if they want to work with you?
On LinkedIn, I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, my name, N Perrotte, or my website, www.theburnouTMD.com.
Beautiful. And then tell us, if people are in that kind of crazy of feeling overwhelmed, there's not enough of me, there's too many everythings, there's too many asks, where should they start, or what are some of those things that you noticed at the beginning that were helpful for you that they can think about for themselves?
Right. The importance of actually taking a pause to just reflect on what's going on and acknowledging that it doesn't have to be right now that you're jumping to make X decision or Y decision, but just taking that pause to reflect. Where are you? What are you doing? Is this resonating with what you want your life to look like? And you may think, oh, this is not doable for me. But then what if it is? What if it is possible to change your life, to have that life that you want? So just stopping for a moment to take that pause and actually ask yourself honestly, what if it's possible? Is this the life that I want? Or is there something else that I want to do? What is it that I'm not dreaming about because I'm so tired? I've been beaten up, I've been questioned, I've been put down. And so I no longer know what I want. I'm just here existing,
Yeah,
just taking that pause.
you're right. That very first question of what do I need or what do I want can feel too much. So don't do it in
Mm-hmm.
the busyness of your day. Do it in the quiet of maybe the drive
Right.
home, or
Yes.
on a walk,
Yes.
or in the
Yes.
shower.
Yes. 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 All of the
Yeah.
above.
Yeah, it is such a difficult question to answer, is what do I need? Like we were talking to Kerry Lockhart from the Trauma Informed Coaching lens of what do I need to be successful or to have some freedom or to feel joy? It can be a difficult question to come up with any answers.
Mm-hmm. It is a difficult question, especially when you have not been dreaming for a while. You could find yourself lost. It's like, what do I want? And
Mm,
it may take you a while to figure out what you want. You might actually have to spend time not being so tired, spend more time in a quiet space where you could actually hear your inner thoughts. So
yeah.
it may not come right away.
Yeah, and then look inside, because I think we're like the immediate answer. I want more bodies, like as in
No,
more worker bees around me doing the work. And that's not going to
no.
happen. That's what I need, and I don't get it.
Right.
But it could be,
No.
I need rest. I need a day
Yes.
off. I need
Yes.
connection. I need to go have
Exactly.
a hug. Like it doesn't have to
Yes.
be big, you guys. Just what do I need is
Exactly.
rest that could feel too hard, but just start little.
Start baby steps first. Baby steps.
Baby steps. That resourcing of what do you need? You need rest. If you
Mhm.
don't know the answer, start with I need rest, hydration, and food.
Exactly. It works every single time. And
Start
you
there.
go from there. You go from there. Exactly.
Love it. Anything we didn't talk about today that you wanted to mention before we wrap up?
We covered a lot, but I think the key thing is just recognizing that as individuals, you're good enough, you are enough, and that we just need to look inside and see what it is we want, what is it we need, making sure that what we're doing is aligned with what we would want to do when we're looking back at the end. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. You mentioned some really good things today, like things like boundaries, that they will always ask more, and
Yes.
you're the one who has to kind of maintain the yeses and nos to that. And
Yes.
do ask your colleagues if you need to go to an appointment. Like it
Hmm.
sounded like that was hard, and you did it, right? You
Yes.
said to your
Yes.
colleague, I need another 3 hours out of this shift today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which can feel like, well, they're burnt out too, but you're still there to help others, and you need help too.
Exactly. Exactly. It goes both ways.
Such pearls today. Thank you so much for being here with us. I really appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here as well. Thank you for
All
having
right,
me.
everybody. Have a wonderful week, and then we'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for being part of the Sustainable Clinical Medicine podcast. If you'd like to learn more, or join us to help you get home with today's work done, go to chartingcoach.ca. There you'll find all the information on the premier Lifetime Access Charting Champions program that is helping physicians get home with today's work done, with all the proven tools, support, and community you need to create time for your life outside of medicine. We would love to see you there. Until next time, thanks for listening.